Well, Coach, one of my favourites, you know that, Stan Alves, highly
Lovely
respected
man.
coach, yes, and of course a lot of talk about coaches at the moment. Isn't it funny that Stan hasn't put his hand up and said, I'm available?
Well,
so,
why would you, when the way he was treated?
He's too smart, so he joins us now. Stan, how are you?
Phil, KG, good to hear your voices.
Well, you
Stan.
haven't been tempted to raise your hand, have you, Stan?
I'll tell you what, isn't it funny when other people are getting the chop and that just doesn't affect you as much?
It's great, isn't it?
I have empathy, but by jeez, I'm glad it's not me.
Stan, there appears to be all sorts of drama surrounding Terry Wallace today. We got reports here in Adelaide that he'd quit, that he was reinstated, he quit. Do you know exactly what actually transpired today?
No, I've got a few phone calls out myself trying to get to the bottom of it. Isn't it funny? In times like this, Message Bank is terrific.
It is.
Everybody's got their phone on Message Bank and they're vetting whether or not they want to talk to you.
So as it stands now, as we understand it, he'll continue in the job as coach.
Yeah. Well, that's let's just wait and see on it. I mean, it's a terrible scenario because you can imagine all the innuendo now, and this is a guy. And look, we all know we've been in that situation. Coaching is about leadership, and it's about people believing it there. All of a sudden now, what are the mixed messages that all the support staff have got, that the players have got, and things like that? I think it's this is going to be a test of Terry. He's gone through some tough times in the past, but by gee, I reckon this now is really going to test his resolve and his ability, I think, to focus.
Yeah,
focus
Stan,
on what needs to be done.
Stan, you've been through all this. Surely this would be almost impossible for Terry to do what he would want to do now, surely.
Oh, without question. Without question, because everything's just going to come at him. And I think it's interesting. Look, he's probably been one of the guys who, over the years, we've known has been able to handle the media well.
Yep.
He's cool in the crisis. And I saw last week, I thought the first time he genuinely was testy, and sort of ramped back at people and flew back, and then sort of bit his tongue and come back and half apologised, but then went again. And that just tells you where he's at right at this point of time. And I think that, look, we all know when emotions take over, and it can be anger, it can be frustration, what it is. The critical thing then is that you can actually lose the things that you're very good at, because I said this word focus is just so important, and you can just imagine that all of a sudden he's going to be saying something and he might have to get stuck into a player, for example, might have to talk strong to a player, and you just know deep down the player's thinking to himself, well, I don't care, you're not going to be here next year, you might be here next week. That's just going to be a tough situation.
That's the trouble with all of it, Stan. You touched on it. It's not just it erodes everything. It erodes all the respect that you've got from the players, from the fans, and it's not just Terry. It erodes into the team as well, and then they fracture off because you've got the guys that like Terry, the ones that don't, and it's nearly a totally unworkable situation that they've left Terry in now. Yeah,
look, it is, and even from the point of view, if you just look at the on-field performance now, and boys, we all know this, because what will happen is that the bottom line is you can say what you like about players, and we're talking about the Richmond Football Club, but this is the critical thing here, is that a team is made up of individuals. Yeah. And now it's a reaction of these individuals, and they'll be looking at it, and they'll be going from a perspective of what they think is good for them. It's going to be self-preservation, and now his difficult task is to ask guys to do things, to do jobs that may not be the glamour thing that you require in every team. And the bloke's sort of saying, well, no, hang on, what do I need to do now to make sure whoever's going to be the next coach is going to hang on to me?
Dan, you wonder if it had been reversed, whether the heat would be on Mark Williams losing to the bottom team.
Well, I think that this is the whole point, because we're focusing on Terry at the moment, but the reality is that there's quite a few others in the boat. I think that there'd be a few out there who would be saying, gee, I hope Terry is not sacked. Nothing for Terry, because what they don't want to do is can happen in AFL footy and a lot of other coaching things, the house of cards. Yeah. Let me tell you. Because you go through periods where everybody keeps their job, and then blow me down, all of a sudden one goes, and she's just like the dominoes, isn't it?
Hey, Stan, can you believe that there are some supporters here in Adelaide that are calling out for the sacking of Neil Craig? Can you believe that?
Yes, I can.
Yep.
Not that it's right, but I can, because this is what will happen. I said this is the whole thing.
Yeah.
That it's just it creates this wave and this momentum, and because there's a pressure on that, everybody's looking at their own people and doing those type of things, and this just makes it very hard for all the coaches. There's no doubt about that from this point of view, and I think this is where you find out just how good clubs are.
Yep.
Because, we've talked about this before, but what we know is that, and I'm not saying it's going to happen with any of the coaches we're talking about, but history will tell you that it's a fine line. Ask Mark Thompson a couple of years ago.
Correct.
Ask Alistair Clarkson the last year.
I reckon you could ask Matty Knights at the start of this year.
Well, that's exactly right. And, and I hear everybody now. I know people involved in the media, and look, so much, you guys will know, so much of what you hear, which is shot out through the airways, can be quite different in the back doors of the corridors around a pie and a drink. And it's interesting, everybody, I can tell you, was saying, I don't think he's the man, and he's not this, and he can't do that. Oh, I'll tell you what I heard on Saturday. Geez, this guy can coach. He's pretty good. So, that's what happens, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, Stan, sometimes though, and you went through this with St Kilda, and I know you don't want to relive this, so I'm sorry, mate, but you're in a similar situation to what Neil Craig was in. That didn't get off to a real good start, and of course then the jungle drums start beating. But you managed to get in the premiership, and they still managed to be able to get rid of you.
Yeah, look, that can happen because again, I just say it's just the perception. That certain people will start to sort of say, well, perhaps we can do better. Perhaps we can do better. And look, we just know it's a fact of life and everything. The grass is always greener.
Yeah, exactly.
And the bottom line, to be quite honest, and I've often said this, if you went to the people who sometimes make these decisions and you ask them, can you please tell me on what basis do you evaluate your coach?
Yes.
If you put a coach in, what do you set him? What are the premise? And they'll look at you stony-faced. Because the reality is that what will happen, under pressure, normally the people behind the scenes are the ones who'll fall first. Because they'll be worried about what the supporters say. They'll be worried about what's in the press. They're worried about we might lose sponsors and all those other different things, which takes away the clarity of actually evaluating a coach right at this point of time. And I'm not saying, for example, that Terry's a man, and also I'm not saying with Neil Craig. But this is the time, I think, where we look at it and you communicate with your coach and sit down and say, look, where are we at now so we all know? And then somebody's got to be brave enough to say to him, well, mate, that's really good, but we want you to look at this area. Not, as I said, not do those Chinese whispers behind the back door that can start to build momentum. Because I just say this again, that let's just use a Neil Craig, and it's easy to find faults with a person from outside. We can always do that, and it's an interesting thing that somebody might do 100 things, 98 right, but guarantee you they'll talk about the 2 you did wrong. But my question is, right now, where he's at and where this team is going, if you brought somebody new in right now, what would you achieve?
Exactly.
What would you achieve by this? How far are you going to have to go back to go ahead? Because I would think, and I don't know him intimately, but I would think that Neil Craig would have, and his group would have a methodical plan of where they want to be.
Yeah. Oh, they have, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Stan, and to the club's credit, they've come out and backed him today. Stephen Triggs made the point.
Strongly.
Just be strong and be patient.
And that's exactly right, isn't it? And I'm going to tell you, that will make the doubters, that will make the blokes who be behind the scenes say, oh, gee, well, I better button my lip.
Yeah.
Because they're only going to say those things if they think there's an area of weakness that they can get a tick and get a point through.
Yeah, exactly right, Sam.
Stan, the media is a pretty powerful tool, and we've all been a part of it, and then we're all involved in it now. But you look at Mick Malthouse's scenario, I mean, he's been pretty gnarly with the media for a long time. And suddenly there's an opening. You sense that he's really on the edge of an avalanche, isn't he?
No doubt. No doubt whatsoever. And in this situation, because again, I think Mick is confrontational, and that's him, and I think he's been a great coach and things like that. But what we know, as I said, look, the best way I can sum it up, boys, you can say what you like, but it's the law of the jungle.
Yeah,
it's the law of the jungle, and by Jesus, if you might be the lion and you might be chewy, but fair dinkum, if you get lame, the bloody hyenas and the jackals, they'll rip the shit out of you. I'm telling you.
Stan, I reckon it's a bit like this, though. You know the John Cleese one, 40 Towers, don't mention the war. I reckon the worst one for the coaches is don't mention the premiership, because as soon as you mention that,
I know.
you're gone. Peter Schwab did it in 2004,
I know.
He's gone, so don't mention the premiership.
No, whatever you do, don't do that. because your chances of achieving it are about 3%.
Exactly. Stan, we appreciate your time, Stan. Thank you very much.
Lovely to
Great
talk to you
any
anytime,
Stan.
boys. You know that. Cheers.
Good on you, Stan. He is a gem, KG.